Your worship.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, Council. I'd like to call this committee of the whole meeting for May 16th, 2024 to order with adoption of the agenda. So I want to make that motion. Councillor Cherry, seconded by Councillor Staples. All in favor? Motion's carried. Adoption of the minutes of the committee of the whole from April 11th. Councillor Cherry, seconded by Councillor Staples. All in favor? Motion's carried. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, I'm going to go right into delegations and presentations. We have the Chamber of Commerce here. Carolyn, you're up.
Where's the thing? Is this it? Okay. Is that happening? I don't know. Oh yeah, we can see it. Great job. Present. Sure, yeah. Interesting. How do we get out of this?
Well, they see it totally fine.
Okay, amazing.
We'll
We'll be right back. Stop, don't video me. Thank you for having us. We will be doing a presentation on the Visitor Center for 2023. As you know, I am the Executive Director of the Revelstoke Chamber of Commerce, and you'll be speaking to our staff. I just want to say that I just want to acknowledge the lens to which we work and get to take care of that belong to the Four Nations. So the Sinixt Nation, Silks, Okanagan, Ktunaxa and Secwepemc, Sago. My name is Caroline. I have ancestry from the Kanien'kehá:ka Nation and have spent a lot of time in Silks Okanagan territory, and I have the pleasure of having learned how to operate in this territory with the other three nations in the Visitor Information Center, and how we are working together on tourism-centered topics. So who we are, our operational team, you'll see behind me, we have Kishelle Norby, who has been with the Visitor Center for a little bit over 2 years. She started as a counselor, quickly moved into the supervisory role, and then was mentored into the Visitor Center coordinator. She's an integral part of the community as she sees a lot of things that are happening both from the visitor side, but also economic development being the entryway to the Business and Visitor Information Center. Layla Rundle, who's also with us, the Visitor Experience Manager, who's been with us for 3.5-ish, 4 years. It's all melting together. 4, yes. She is also the person who manages the Ambassador Program, which is unrelated to the Visitor Information Center, but quite related to the Chamber of Commerce. We also have Tess Hulbert, as many of you know, who has been with the Chamber for 8 years and has also started as a counselor and been moved through pretty much every role you can think of. She was also effectively acting as a non-official executive director for the Chamber, in my opinion, when there was no executive director, and she's an absolute force and a leader and has been promoted to the membership engagement manager position in 2024. We also have Karma, which is important to mention because she does a lot of community work on the side. She is the person who's putting together ReFest in the background. We have lots of connections through the community, through the Chamber of Commerce, but also the Visitor Information Center. April, who many of you may know as the voice of the morning show co-host. She helps us work with a lot of our Indigenous efforts that we're putting together. And then Joe, who works at the Visitor Center and is also the project support, unofficial title of Unicorn. He makes all the little things happen. We have our board of directors with our president being Brendan Benson, senior project manager at Chronometer, avid advocate for the environment and housing. Kim Spence, what an absolute blessing it is to have him on our board. He is the director of food and beverage at Revelstoke Mountain Resort. I knew about Kim before I even moved here. I followed his career. He is fantastic. He's very involved with the chamber. We have Christina Chong, who's been with us for, I want to say, 6 years. She's our treasurer and co-partner at Sync Accounting. How lucky are we to have a CPA as a treasurer? Jamie Hobgood has recently actually stepped down as of a few weeks ago as he's partnered into purchasing part of the Woolsey. So we're very excited for him. He was with the chamber for 6 years as well as a secretary. That position will be filled this evening. And then we have multiple other directors on our board. So the visitor information, when do you come on? Stop me if I'm talking for you. I tend to do that. Okay, just checking. The Visitor Information Center is funded, as you know, primarily through our fee-for-service with the city of Revelstoke. Last year, we were getting our money directly from Tourism Revelstoke. That comprises about $105,000 for 2023. And then we had $90,000 of RMI money that would come in through the city. We also get lots of support from Community Futures for different projects that we work on, and that funding flexes up and down as it moves through things. Same thing with economic development. We started doing a little bit of outreach through the tourism sectors in the fall of 2023 with roundtables, and we'll speak more to that about the rapid influx of the amount of meetings that we've had in 2024 already. So organized. So Layla will be next. All right.
Great. Hi, thanks for having me today. I am here to share some visitor experience updates from 2023 with you all. Go to the next slide. So first off, there were some changes within our team at the beginning of the year. I transitioned from Visitor Services Manager to Visitor Experience Manager. This shift brought its own set of challenges, especially hiring for a Visitor Center Coordinator position while entering our busy season of the spring and the summer. Let's dive into some figures. So our Net Promoter Score from 2023 Visitor Experience Survey currently dropped to 69, marking a decline from 82, which we achieved in 2022. This drop brings us back to the satisfaction levels of what we saw in 2020. I am currently collaborating with Tourism Revelstoke to analyze the visitor feedback and pinpoint the reasons behind this decrease. When we have more details, we will be sharing the findings, especially if the data points towards economic development opportunities. Last year, we secured a grant for Indigenous awareness. This allowed us to host a full-day in-person workshop titled Working Effectively with Indigenous Peoples, in collaboration with Indigenous Corporate Training. It was well received with all the seats filled and positive feedback from all attendees. Our marketing program was also a new area for me to learn. We publish all our usual content or marketing materials, including activity guides, marketing menu, and the experience guide with updates and changes. Chamber members receive 20% off all marketing opportunities. Print marketing is still very much alive, and the requested in Revelstoke, but we hope we can start shifting to better online resources in the future. The Chamber continued to support the wayfinding strategy to help serve the community in a collaborative group. We are thrilled to see the physical outcomes. You can see the little eye at the traffic circle from last year. Our Revelstoke Ambassador Program had a great year with 450 ambassadors completing both courses available in the summer and the winter program. We had over 400 benefit packages distributed. We also offered discounts and benefits from local businesses, which we plan to expand even more in the future. The Chamber Ambassador Program serves as a cornerstone for the workforce attraction, retention, and business expansion within our community. As part of the visitor experience role, I actively engage and outreach with numerous businesses through the essential programs like the Ambassador Program. And on the next slide here, okay, it's not going to play, but we did also do some outreach through Reels of the Ambassador Program, which helped us promote the Welcome Week event in 2023. with a in-person training session at the Roxy Theatre. We promoted the event online through the Chamber socials, showcasing this reel as a competition to market the event. This was posted both on Instagram and Facebook. The event had a fantastic turnout of ambassadors. Prior to the screening of the ambassador film, attendees had the opportunity to learn about local benefit providers who came on stage to present about their seasonal incentive. The ambassadors who attended the session gave positive feedback and asked for similar events, if not more, in 2024. Finally, I want to highlight the great work of the Revelstoke Visitor Services team, led by Cashel last year. Cashel stepped up from supervisor to visitor center coordinator, ensuring a smooth and unforgettable experience for everyone who walked through the doors. From personalized help to business information, the team ensures that everyone's time in Revelstoke is not just enjoyable, but truly remarkable. I'd like to invite Cashel to come speak about the visitor services. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am Cashel. As Layla mentioned, I've been in my role for about a year now. Really loving it and excited to be here with you all today. So the Chamber of Commerce has been managing the visitor center in Revelstoke since the 1960s, which is super cool. Today, we support the Chamber businesses through various marketing channels in the visitor center. So this is what it looks like today. We've got the brochure racking, the TV ads, and our print materials. We also support Chamber businesses when we speak to our visitors. We give them recommendations on how to spend their time here. We support our local artists as well by selling their art through our retail program. We've got a consignment program. And this includes the Truth and Reconciliation fundraising t-shirts for the Indigenous Friendship Society of Revelstoke, which we're really happy to have in the shop there. We also work really closely with tourism businesses to keep them informed on what's going on happening in the town and provide visitors with information on what's going on. So that's done through our WhatsApp publication, and it looks like this. So it's got, you know, all the events happening, and that's distributed to all of our kind of tourism forward businesses. So going back to talk about some stats on who we speak to in the visitor center. Last year, we welcomed close to 40,000 people in our visitor center. This was about a 20% decline from last year, which is due to numerous factors. But one that's kind of easy to point out is the wildfires that affected our area and kind of adjacent last year. So it really impacted visitors' abilities to travel throughout our province, caused a lot of alarm and confusion for those trying to navigate road closures and poor air quality conditions. So our staff really did the best that they could during that time to mitigate fear and maximize those wanting to stay and spend their vacation dollars in our community. But it was challenging. I would also like to highlight that 20% of the people who came into our visitor center were actually local residents. So that's always really cool to connect with those folks. Our staff really love being involved in the community, and we touch base with tourism business members, both chamber members and future members, in our outreach when we drop off our visitor experience guides, which will be happening tomorrow. Very exciting. We also are a touch point for the Revelstoke Ambassador Program, so folks will come in and pick up their benefits package at the visitor center, and that's how we're able to connect with so many local residents. Yeah. We are also able to inform them on what they have access to through the Business and Visitor Information Center. Our goal this year was to increase the visitor center and mobile services statistics by 3 to 5%. However, we did face that 20% decline. That is our visitor center and the mobile roaming services together. It is, however, important to highlight our mobile services only declined about 3% overall. And this is because we were able to extend our roaming season on either end. We've really increased our staff retention. So we were able to get our returning staff out really quickly with minimal training, just a little refresher. And then a lot of our staff really wanted to stay on into the winter. So we were able to roam into the month of September, which has never happened. So that was really exciting. We did have a few days where we couldn't roam due to smoke, but on the other hand, we were fortunate enough to get a spot at the market last summer, a few days. So we were able to connect with a lot more variety of people. And this summer, we are really excited to announce that we are expanding our roaming services further. So you'll find us at the market every single weekend. Thank you very much. And I'd like to open it up to any questions that you might have.
When we talk about your roaming, so you're going up top Mount Revelstoke, is that correct? And then where else throughout the community?
Through the chair, yes, we're going up into Mount Revelstoke to various viewpoints.
Right.
At the market, and then we are exploring being present at Revi Live, as well as having a presence somehow in the community center and supporting those folks there. But those relationships have yet to be established.
Great. Well, I appreciate that. Council, any questions for Michelle? Any comments? Councilor Lemon?
Thank you so much for the presentation. Just overall, I'm just curious regarding the Net Promoter Score, how do you actually gather that? Is that using a specific platform or method? Just interesting to see the tracking that performance measure. I'm just curious to know how you do it. So.
Yes. Thank you. Through the chair. So the Net Promoter Score is an area that I believe is mostly managed by Tourism Revelstoke. It is one that we at the Visitor Centre, we manage it through having it on our iPads, the survey at the front.
Okay.
And we gather the information by having visitors who come in, if they have a positive experience or they just want to give some general feedback, we ask them to use the survey to give that feedback. It doesn't need to be negative or positive, just even if some people are just waiting for the bathroom. This year, they've actually giving out some free stickers for those that do give some feedback on the survey. So the way that we track it at the Visitor Centre is having the survey available at the front for visitors. And I know last year, Tourism Revelstoke was able, because they had two surveys, one for the local resident and one for the visitor experience. And they were able to have both options so that they could collect the right data for the visitor and then for the local resident as well. And then, like I mentioned, I am working collaborative with them to kind of figure out those results. It does look like a common theme at the moment of looking briefly at the results is affordability. And then, of course, just some like transportation as well, getting to Revelstoke. But more on that will come through as we analyze the data.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leila, I just want to say thanks for putting together that ambassador program. So 25, 30 years ago, we had that, I think, BC-wide program called Superhost, which one of my cousins was kind of teaching some of that stuff. And I found how important it was for those on the front lines to know something about the community and being able to get that information out. And I almost feel it's mandatory for all of our community members to learn those programs. So thank you for that. It's really awesome to see that up and running and people taking part. I really appreciate that. Council, any other comments, questions? Councilor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. Thank you for the presentation. Really great be in an era where the city and the chamber have a great relationship, and it's super, super appreciated. Thank you so much. Curious on the visitors services statistics, so you're down that 20%. It's interesting going back from 2015, which were maybe a tiny bit lower than 2015. And then we did have the COVID years with the predictable dip that went down and climbed up last year. The perspectives on how the online is being used, and do you have a sort of a sense? Like, to me, it's not overly concerning. If it was just raw statistics, I'd say, oh, if it's just raw statistics, you'd say, well, or is it a disappearing entity? And I don't think it is. But do you sort of have any sort of comments on that sort of high level of what that, give it some meaning, I guess, this thing?
Yeah, through the chair, what we kind of see in the visitor center is folks doing a bit of research online and giving us a call or coming in to confirm that what they've found is correct, accurate, up to date, and if there's anything that they've kind of missed. So kind of a combination of, using the online resources and coming to us as well.
I think as well, to speak on it, a few comments that we gathered from last year was in the year of 2022, a lot of folks had pre-booked during COVID and they weren't able to make these trips. And then in 2022, they were able to take these trips that were already paid for. But then in 2023, our biggest comment was the affordability to travel still and to afford to travel. So that's maybe somewhat of the percentage that we're seeing is this affordability to drive with gas prices and things to travel. We were kind of seeing comments that maybe some folks had to kind of cancel their trips just to the prices of influx in British Columbia as a whole.
Right. Okay. Thanks. And then going back to the Net Promoter Score, so it's again sort of interesting. You'll do the analytics. One of the things comparable for me, I guess potentially, is so you go to the car dealership to get a service, and like they go over the top to try and get a high score. So it might be actually how it's sold. Please give us a high score. It might pop up. Of course, you got the problem the next year. But yeah, just any sort of comments on that? Yeah.
Through the chair, so the Net Promoter Score being low, in our opinion, is not a negative thing. When you have a Net Promoter Score like this of raw data that is so incredibly honest, it's a great opportunity to see where you can grow as a community. So if we have a Net Promoter Score that is constantly high, but we're a growing community, concerns would be that the staff are pushing for people to fill this out when they're having a positive experience and not when they're having a negative experience. Having a Net Promoter Score that is low, it's actually not even low, it's just lower for us because we've just had them high for so long, is a great opportunity for us as the managers of this location to be able to turn around to CED, for instance, and say, hey, we're having these consistent things that are coming back in partnership with Tourism Revelstoke to see how can we, shift that. Is it that people are asking that there's not enough spaces for them to take their dogs? Is it that the actual cost of when they're in town is extremely expensive on some certain things? So even though this is nothing to do with 2023, but in 2024, we've already sat down with Tourism Revelstoke multiple times to kind of look at how are we going to look at the data, and then instead of looking at it annually, where we're sitting down the two organizations together, we've decided to actually quickly look at it quarterly as a minimum and monthly as a goal. To say how we brought forward that it would be very pertinent for us to be able to turn around and share that data as leaders in economic development in our community with the other economic development organizations, so that if it's something that we know is coming down the pipeline, we can let Paul know or Steve know that they're working on something and it seems to be affecting things, and we might be able to pivot faster than we normally would, as to where when you're looking at a Net Promoter Score that is finished in December, now it's May, we're starting to look at you're almost like a whole entire year behind when you bring that forward. So it's a great opportunity for us to take a look at how we can push our community a little bit further.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council? Councilor Arnold?
Oh, your worship. Yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone for the presentations. That's great today. You know, it took me a while before I tuned into this statistic. I mean, it was years ago that somebody pointed out the fact that we have because our visitor mix is destination based in the wintertime. There are far fewer visitors here, and then the nature of the highway traffic in different cohort is different in the summertime. That means a lot more people are coming by the visitor information center looking for information. You know, anecdotally for me traveling around out of town and improvising in the past, you sort of it's a refresher on how powerful the digital platforms are in capturing your attention, but also realizing that they're kind of lacking and that they're not getting me really what I'm looking for in many instances.
Mm-hmm.
So I always see just in what you're doing, it's great to see you're paying attention to those metrics and analyzing them and working with other teams on them. It's fantastic to see that there is opportunity there, because, you know, I would appreciate that opportunity for someone to drill down for me to say, you know, whatever my interests or, you know, things I want to do today are, you know, am I really going to find it on the thing that's going to me to like the number one attraction every single time, you know, or a variation on that. So it's fantastic to see all the tracking and ongoing tracking. It's just really valuable. Thank you for doing it. So.
Through the chair, if I can just quickly comment on that. So we have been looking a lot about user experience, like how are people using things at the visitor center, and we have a lot of things that we've already started this year in terms of connecting with people both online, in person, and more that will come forward in a different format that we'll share with you in the coming weeks. But just to let you know, like the statistics for the visitor center are already higher this year. So things are looking up, and it's actually quite interesting because we've had a not so favorable winter, but somehow the stats are higher. And I've also met with Steve Black to talk about the wayfinding to get to the visitor center. That was something that is a big pain point that we hear almost daily is that people get confused about the PharmaSafe sign, and then they're like, I'm lost, and they're going around in a circle around the block. So I've met with Steve to figure out how we can shift some things around. And so that's something else that we've been looking at. We were listening and we're trying to pivot to see how we can be more user experience friendly and not just doing the motions just to do the motions. Yeah. Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you.
Councilor Stiglers.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Through the chair, thank you for your presentation. Very informative. Maybe something for future reference is be great to look at these year over year visitor center numbers and have them tied to some economic data, so that way we can know the impact of loss of tourism and what does that mean for our community, especially when we're advocating for, you know, the federal government for funding for, you know, BC wildfire or whatever to better serve our community. So but thank you for the presentation.
Through the chair, that is something that we discussed on the chamber side of things, like how the visitor center and the chamber marries itself together. These are conversations we had with the MPs yesterday that came through, is exactly that. And when the ChooseRevelstoke.com website was put out, you know, these are conversations that we've had with economic development and CED, is how do we do these things together so that we're moving as a unit instead of individual organizations that are not communicating properly. So I'm glad that you see that. It makes me feel a little bit more validated in my thought process. So that's fantastic.
Well, thank you, ladies. I'm thinking about what kind of a sign that we could, you know, kind of raise Mr. Gibbs' hair on to get people to the visitors info center. So a giant arrow or something pointing down saying you're now here. Probably doesn't go with any of our wayfinding stuff, but it would be pretty cool.
So for your worship, maybe one of those cowboy signs where it's actually you, but you're just pointing down.
So that's gonna scare people.
But we do have a really great plan. It's the solutions have already been figured out. We just need to do some implementation.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Again, thank you, ladies. Appreciate what you do for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are now moving on to item 9A, staff reports. Heritage Management Plan. And so Mr. Simon, Ms. Hartling, Ms. Hartling's coming up. We'll hand it over to you and Ms. Cook and go from there.
Thank you, Your Worship. So today we will be presenting to Community Heritage Management Plan. You're not going to hear too much from myself today. I do just want to take a quick minute to note for council and the community that is listening. I can't even begin to express how impressed I am with this document that the team has put together. And every single member of this community should read the first 37 pages. It is such a meticulous documentation of the history of Revelstoke. And I just want to make sure that we give a really big shout out to the Heritage Commission, who's been working on this for a couple of years with the team. Ms. Hartley, of course, who has been managing the project for the Development Services Department. Mr. Toma, who has been invaluable in providing so much information, a wealth of information to give a good baseline of documenting our Indigenous heritage within Revelstoke. And of course, Ms. Cook, who has gone above and beyond any consultant I have worked with on any project ever, and has dedicated much more time than has been required as per her contract on this plan. So we are very lucky to have the team that we have, and very excited to see this plan presented to committee today.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Simon. Ms. Hartling, it's up to you.
Thank
Start us
you.
off.
Yes, as Mr. Simon said, it's really exciting that we're getting to this point today for committee of the whole and hopefully for a future council meeting with the Heritage Management Plan. I'm just going to go through a bit of the overview of how we've got here in the Heritage Management Plan here. So just a bit of background, summary of the management plan, and then recommendation for committee of the whole to council. And just before we start off, the Heritage Management Plan is a big document, and we've added quite a lot of context and information in there, as you've seen. It's a 166-page document, and it reads like a novel at the beginning, but it is such key information for the residents of this community, visitors, developers, staff, and council to read through. So just starting off here, we have a acknowledgement here that is a bit more inclusive and guides the Heritage Management Plan, and what council is used to seeing is a bit more succinct. And so I do want to just read this out, because I do feel like it is important as you read through the Heritage Management Plan for context throughout the plan. So just start reading it. So this work acknowledges the location of the city of Revelstoke in the beautiful Columbia Mountains along the Columbia River, which is a traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Sinixt, Ktunaxa, the Secwepemc, and the Syilx peoples. These four nations have a rich history in the region dating back thousands of years, long before the arrival of European settlers. While this document can provide a brief overview of the Indigenous history of Revelstoke, it is important to note that this history is complex, and there is much more to learn from oral traditions and archaeological evidence. We pledge to keep learning from the Indigenous people of the region about their values, language, and cultures. A policy found in Revelstoke's official community plan states that the city must recognize and celebrate the natural, culture, and economic heritage of local Indigenous communities. This Heritage Management Plan seeks to take a first step beyond this territorial acknowledgement to attend to issues and opportunities in heritage planning that ensure that one's group heritage is not seen to be more important than the other. The commitment to retain and commemorate an ongoing, trusting, working relationship and open conversation with the Sinixt, the Ktunaxa, the Secwepemc, and the Syilx will be key in informing Revelstoke's heritage conservation efforts. Some policies and actions are concluded throughout the Heritage Management Plan and relate to measures that can be undertaken by the city to engage in the process of Indigenous reconciliation. And this is by no means the answer to meaningful reconciliation, but is intended to serve as a starting point to promote and support continued dialogue to learn from and engage with our Indigenous partners. So that has also been added to our Heritage Management Plan and throughout the plan with help from our Indigenous liaison, Dale Toma, who's here with us today. And just getting into drafting the plan, we call it the HMP or the plan. And this has been drafted by Denise Cook, who Paul introduced, our heritage consultant, just sitting here. And this is based on local research, heritage best practices, and input from and support from first being awarded the CBT and Heritage BC grant. So the city did apply for this grant It's all the way back in 2019 now. We were awarded in 2020. And then through COVID, there was a bit of a stall there. We got an extension and we started working on forming the Heritage Program and Heritage Management Plan with the Advisory Planning Commission and Heritage Consultant throughout 2021, and then formed the Public Engagement Plan, which was presented to Council back in 2022. So that was with workshops and surveys throughout the community. And so Mayor and Council and planning staff, our Indigenous liaison, and the Director of Parks and Recreation and Culture have been key in helping support this plan getting to this point today. So just a brief overview of the plan. It's intended to ensure that there's commitment to safeguard the valued features of Revelstoke and its cultural heritage with intent to be implemented over time. So there are a lot of objectives and action items throughout the plan, and these are intended to consistently be implemented over time throughout the community for a successful heritage program. And you'll see later on in the presentation that we do have key action items to start right away. So the goal of the plan is to support revitalization, economic development, tourism, sustainability, environmental conservation, climate change, and other city initiatives. And these are to align with community values and also other city master plans as they get updated over time. So it's recommended that the community be engaged as we implement the plan. So each of the action items that you're looking through the plan as they're implemented, that there are key touching points with the community. And we've drafted this plan as a living document. So it will evolve over time. Heritage is not just one point in time. It does change as the community changes over time. So with ongoing research and information from reports and insights from the community, it will need to be updated. Standard for updating is 3 years, but if new key information comes up, then we will look at updating and coming back to council. So it's broken into 5 parts. Part 1 is the community foundation. So this is really providing an overview and introduction of the Heritage Management Plan and how conservation tools are outlined throughout the plan. And the Heritage Advisory Commission was really, really helpful in drafting a vision statement for the community. And this vision statement, I'm not going to read through it, but it's just at the start of the document there. It really sets the stage for all the guiding policies and actions throughout the plan that you get to. So we did add a historical context. This was added later on in the review of the plan that we thought was important. And it really reads like a novel of the Indigenous history and the community history and values, and brings it together and through a chronological time frame of themes and events of Revelstoke's history. And as noted, it's a living document. There's just a blurb there with Indigenous history that it will evolve over time, and we do need to have key check-ins to update it. Part 2 of the plan, this is people, culture, and city. This overview of all the cultural landscape of Revelstoke, and then the key historic neighborhoods. So the official community plan has 14 neighborhoods, and there's 8 key historic neighborhoods that this plan has outlined, and just some key features of them, of history, where they're at now, and how they're evolving. And then the plan really takes in this section of the community feedback that we received at the workshops and through the surveys. So all the community feedback got incorporated into heritage values in Revelstoke, and it really identified significant places, landscape, cultural areas to be recognized in the city that may not be formally recognized. So part 3, this is really the big guts of the plan of implementation. So it's from vision to actions, and it guides all the work plans and provisions of the objectives and policies. So 1 is regeneration and sustainability. This is protecting valued resources and putting locals' needs first. Response to issues such as Indigenous reconciliation, social concerns, climate change, development pressures, support for biodiversity and a changing economy, and key policies and actions for implementation. So within the plan, there's detailed charts for the objective, action item, implementation. What you see on the right hand of the screen there, it might be hard to read, but those are the objectives under each section. So for example, I won't go through them all, but for 1, for regeneration and sustainability, you have advanced reconciliation through heritage conservation, promote adaptive reuse of existing buildings. So that's really addressing climate change and carbon use. Maintain the vitality of the Revelstoke downtown. So that's looking at a downtown revitalization plan that has historically done in the past. Enhance the city's public open spaces. Recognize the diversity of Revelstoke's heritage. Support agricultural regeneration. Sustain ecological heritage in the city. And then establish a tree retention policy or bylaw. So those are some of the key factors that came out of engaging with the public and heritage best practices and really researching what is valued and needed in the city of Revelstoke. So 2 is enhanced appreciation of tangible and intangible cultural heritage. This is really building communication and awareness throughout Revelstoke and partnerships of heritage conservation. And then managing change and effectively planning for heritage. This is responding to development pressures, having clear processes and commitment to heritage conservation throughout the city. So this is a framework that's utilizing different conservation tools that we'll get through just coming up here. And then city and community stewardship, this is really the capacity of the city to implement the program. So this is ensuring that there's support from the community for implementation and really outlining how we are to do this. So there's a lot of action items, and to get us started, we first identified 5, now we have 6. So starting off, we are looking to work on the city's heritage register to get that up to date. It hasn't been looked at for quite some time. And then update and refresh the heritage page on the website. Enact a heritage procedures bylaw to formalize the city's heritage approach and procedures. This is so we can have a process for heritage alteration permits, heritage revitalization agreements, heritage designation bylaws. This was really needed in order to have consistent and good communication with the community of what to expect when they're applying for these type of applications. Establish a heritage awareness policies and processes within city departments. So knowledge throughout the city departments wide so that they are using this plan and it's not just kept with development services. Plan for a heritage and value-based revitalization program. This is a pretty exciting action item our department's very excited about, is having the downtown revitalized. And this would be something that would be very community focused, engaged, and something that we're looking at doing in the near future here. And initiating the development of a citywide interpretive plan. So just quickly go over some of the tools, but it really helps staff with the legislative heritage conservation tools that are available to us and to council for guiding heritage in the city. So these can be adopted into new plans, policies, bylaws, and permitting systems, as well as incentives and agreements. So some of these tools are heritage inventory, which the city has but has not updated for quite some time. You'll see on the side of the screen there, that's the heritage conservation area in yellow, and then the kind of pinkish colored ones are all the inventory properties, but nothing has been done with the inventory. So there's a community heritage register, again, that has not been updated for quite some time. We have a lot of buildings in the city that do not have any form of heritage conservation protection. Heritage designation, that's by bylaw. So the only property I'm aware of that has a designation is the old school building that the old school Erie is in. Heritage revitalization agreement, that will be coming to council shortly. We do have an application going under this process, and it's a negotiation tool of restoring a heritage building while the applicant might be getting a use change or a variance. It's ensuring that there's long-term heritage conservation of the building, that it's not just a point in time and then it deteriorates. So it's continually preserved. Development permit areas can have policies for heritage, revitalization taxes exemption program. So there's an opportunity for protected heritage properties to have a tax exemption, which the old school building did qualify for. Zoning, so you can have specific zoning for heritage buildings or properties that may be more strict or lenient. Heritage conservation area, that's what you see in front of you today with the Revelstoke Station conservation area. A temporary protection order that can be placed by council if there's an application over a property that's not protected. There is the opportunity for council to place a temporary protection order on a building permit. Heritage incentives, and then heritage alteration permits. So part 5 is really giving us some of the resources and tools. So these are the appendices for guidance and direction on some of the items throughout the whole plan. So heritage assessment criteria, how we assess heritage, how we register a property into the register. It's an inclusion process so that we are consistently reviewing each property in an approach that's fair. Heritage conservation planning process, and then finally with what we heard summary with the community engagement that was previously presented to council. So that concludes my presentation. So staff do recommend that the committee of the whole recommends to council that the heritage management plan prepared by Denise Cook, it should be dated May 16th, 2024, be approved, and that a spending initiative to implement the heritage management plan be included for council consideration in the 2025 budget as part of the long-term financial plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harling. I appreciate the report. I'm just going to start off questions. The register, the history registry, is that just locally, or once it's registered, that's a provincial document? Can you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, through the chair, the registry is first, it starts off with a statement of significance or an application for the registry, and then a statement of significance of the heritage value of the property. And then it's recommended to council that's added to the register. It gets added to, there's a certain time frames with this too, and I can also have our consultant step in anytime, but it's added to the register that we have to notify the province within a certain period of time. Then it gets added to the provincial registry and also Canada Places, I believe.
The Canadian
Yeah,
Register
yeah.
of Historic Places.
Yeah.
Good, thank you for that. So here's a question for you. City Hall on that register?
Yeah, City Hall is on there. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments or questions from council? Councilor Palmer, you've got your hand half up.
Yeah, thank you through the mayor. Thank you very much for the work you've done. Yeah, and really great to see. I remember some of the early engagement pieces, and really happy to see get to this point. Just of course, when we go through themes of what's happening in the community, pick up on them. So I'm drilling into a little detail on trees, and I'm really pleased to see that. I've been very concerned recently. So I've expressed recently of some of our mature trees going down and a need. I think I'm of the opinion that we actually need a bylaw, not just a policy, to put some teeth into preserving that aspect. So I'm really pleased to see that component in particular. Thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions, council? Councilor Lim.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I really appreciate it. I have a question regarding what the next steps would be following the recommendation. So it recommends a spending initiative to implement the plan be presented in the 2025 budget. The plan presents 6 actions, and they're fairly interpretable as specific things that need to happen. My question is, what is the timeline of all of these actions likely to be and are they going to be all included in the 2025? Not necessarily the timeline for developing them, but how are we going to phase out the costing of that? Are we deciding sort of on all at once or over multi-year phase? I'm just trying to understand that.
Some of these items in the action plan and the 6 items are like the integrating heritage in the departments, updating the website. That won't be an extra cost, but the items that the downtown revitalization program and project will definitely be. And we've been working on the budget for the heritage management plan action items for 2025. And we've been looking at adding the revitalization program or project and a heritage conservation area study between the downtown and the heritage conservation area and what that looks like. So those 2 items have been added to staff's budget that we're going to be presenting. I'm not sure if Mr. Simon has anything else to add.
Through your worship, Councilor Orlando, so we're looking at a multi-year rollout, actually. There are dozens of action items in this plan, and the way staff would propose to tackle it, so if they are prioritized, those 6 actions that Ms. Hartling indicated are the priority ones right now. But it will probably take at least 10 years plus to implement everything within this plan, similar to our OCP, our Housing Action Plan. You can really think of this plan as kind of the third leg of the stool for the Development Services Department. So between the Heritage Management Plan, the OCP, and the Housing Action Plan, that is what gives us our work plan and our marching orders from council and the community to start implementing different bylaws, different programs, different policies. So probably about 10 years. So what you would see as part of the 2025 budget capital spending request would be these items all being embedded as part of the 15-year long-term financial plan.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Councilor Plum?
So, yeah, really great report, and I look forward to reading it in more detail. One of the challenges with these sort of master plans that the city has is it's a lengthy document, and yes, you have the summary at the beginning. And so just sort of planting a seed as to how do we take this thing for those members in the public that aren't into sitting down and reading a novel kind of thing, having that sort of 2-page. And it's a theme sort of throughout many things that we're doing. It's really hard to convey that so that in a very, very short, like 2 pages, which is super, super challenging to do that. So something just consider how do we communicate that, and maybe that's something to engage our communications person with as well. But take all this wonderful stuff and convey that, just how amazing it is in that succinct document. Thanks.
Good. Thank
Yeah,
you,
through the chair, the Heritage Advisory Commission really outlined that they're happy to see this document complete, but they really want the community to be educated on that we actually have this document and know about it and understand it. So we have been talking about a guide. I was hoping to get a guide done already, but has not got there yet. But it is something that there is upfront community engagement, so we really want to be able to have something where there's education piece after this. That's with the update to the city's website and guides to have something done that sooner than later. That's one of the first items on here that we do want to have completed. So yeah, it's a good idea to talk to the communications coordinator. That would probably help us.
Well, good. Thank you again. It seems that years of work and information have gone into this. I know that from my perspective, our citizens have said remember our history and where we come from, and I want to say that the input from you and what Dale has brought forward, the Indigenous input is really instrumental. Dale, do you have anything?
I do have just one final comment.
Perfect.
Yeah, or maybe a couple.
Sure.
This, like many other plans, came, to the Indigenous piece late. And, to start most of these plans, we should probably start at the stage of the application of the grant to start reaching out to these communities, our First Nations partners, then, so that we can get proper, and I'm talking about all plans, and it's getting better from before I first got here to even as I was kind of showing up in my role, it was already getting better and people were doing a lot better. This one definitely has taken a huge leap, and I'm grateful for Denise with working on it, and Erica and Paul and their patience. But yeah, we gotta just get a little bit more ahead of the 8 ball and actually have them tell their story through us.
That's
more or
awesome.
less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that input, because I think that's imperative, and conversations that we've had since you've been here have led in that direction, and I really appreciate our staff going with you to see if we can get that done, but we can always do better.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Councillor Lennon?
Yeah, Your Worship, I just wanted to ask a question. I had an opportunity to talk to former Mayor Dr. Jeff Battersby, who was involved in a couple of the initiatives that are explained in the history section of the report. and that was the 1970s sort of Bavarian theme initiative for economic revitalization, as well as the current heritage theme, Grizzly Plaza, et cetera, revitalization. And one of the things that struck me as part of both of those processes was a lot of energy spent by the organizers, including himself at the time, getting people on board, getting the downtown business owners on board with first the Bavarian look, then the heritage look. And when I think of heritage, I tend to like to revert more to a few heritage buildings downtown, but more the residential districts with our heritage look. And my question is focused on this is how did the implementation of this plan go to build that enthusiasm and buy-in and voluntary effort, and make it clear what that is for everyone? For myself, I tend to sometimes think of this as, oh, if I'm going to rent this building, I'm going to have to do this kind of thing. And how do we change it from that sort of perspective to people going, I'm on board, I see what the vision is, I know what the vision is, and this is what it means for me as I do an update. So how does that work within the policies and plans that are proposed here moving forward?
Through the chair, I think it's really early on when we do start the downtown revitalization project and the heritage conservation area design guidelines. As they abut each other, like they're right next to each other, and we are finding development pressures of more innovative, maybe heritage infill that is coming into the city. Instead of being maybe scared of some design guidelines, or because those past projects that you talked about, what people see today and love wasn't necessarily the mindset of getting people on board with a revitalization plan at the time. So it is definitely where we will need help with the engagement piece, and it might be where we are having an engagement consultant with us with that, and really engaging the public and having in-person meetings with design, what they want to see, and really listening. Like, we're not going to change the downtown without hearing what everybody wants. And if it's a no to a certain look or height or change, then that's not what we're going to do. We're not going to change it. Or council can choose, but we want to hear from everybody. So it's a good question. It's something that we haven't done yet, so it's hard to say how we are going to do it, because we do need to frame that project up. But I do think that's something that'll be a key component of that revitalization project, is how we engage that everybody is really wanting to contribute and feel like their voice is heard in the town, and in the design concept as well, and takes ownership of it as well.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Cook, do you have any words of wisdom you'd like to have?
Thanks for that.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but
There is one thing I do want to say. It's been a huge privilege for me to work on this with this team, with the Heritage Commission, with council. It's really exciting for me, and I think that the people you have here are going to be able to really push this through and use heritage best practices, and I think it's going to be successful. So thanks for that.
thank you. We appreciate you working with staff and getting us to this point. This is exciting for us. When we think about all the things that this community has gone through, and seeing kind of this plan come together, and it's exciting. I appreciate that. Any last words, Ms. Hartling?
Through chair, no additional comments. Just excited to see that this plan can get in place so we can start some of the action items, and really excited that we can get started on the downtown plan. So some of the buildings, they're amazing, but definitely could use a bit of a refresh. And I think that was really successful from the last plan. It was so long ago now that I think it would be a really positive community project, and everybody cherishes the downtown. So it's something I think there'll be a lot of involvement.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, appreciate that. All right, council, there is a recommendation here. Does someone want to put this motion on the table for us, please? Councilor Plummer?
Yeah, I'll do it as written.
All right, so a seconder for the motion, please. Councilor Stapenhurst. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. All right, we are going to move on to 12A Communications, RCMP. I don't see our staff sergeant here, so maybe we can ask our fire chief to do this for us. I think, unless there's any questions on the communications report from RCMP, we've got it in front of us, and if there's anything that you want clarification on, we can get that question to Staff Sergeant Dodds. Seeing nothing, I am going to call for a motion to go in camera pursuant to section 90.1D and E of the Community Charter. So I want to make that motion for me. Councillor Cherry, Councillor Staples, all in favor? Motion's carried. We'll take a few-minute break and come back in camera.